HR Famous is brought to you by HRU Tech, a contingent staffing firm specializing in engineering, IT, and technically related placements across multiple industries. If you're looking for technical talent or searching for a career, look no further than HRU Tech. Find them online at hrutech.com and call them today. HR Famous is also brought to you by Kinetics, the leading RPO recruiting firm for growth companies, named by HRO Today as the top midsize RPO provider. Kinetics uses its unique skill-based recruiter model to deliver on RPO engagements, allowing them to customize scope to meet your unique hiring needs. If you have recruiting challenges and want to consider RPO as a solution, give Kinetics a call. Find them online at kineticshr.com. Hey, what's up, everybody? HR Famous Podcast. I'm Kris Dunn. Back in the host seat. Got to tell you, it feels good. Tim Sackett and Jessica Lee. We've got the whole gang together today. Good to talk to you both. And, you know, it's like we're in the 40s in terms of the great COVID shutdown. So I got a request.
You mean like the day 40s or like the temperature 40s?
If you're in Michigan, it's both. If I don't know about Jlee in DC, but if you're in the Southeast, you know, it's always like 60 to 70 degrees in April. Jlee, is it 40 degrees in DC?
We are experiencing unusual climate at the moment, and the Washington Post has likened it to Seattle temperatures and climate. So it feels good for me.
Okay, very
depressing.
Good.
Rainy, gray, and depressing. Feels great.
Jay, I talk to Katie like almost every day, and it's always with like, you know, hey, how you doing? He's like, yeah, day 36. And it's almost always like day 36, day 37, day 38. He doesn't really know how many days. He randomly pulls a number. It's day 73 of the great COVID crisis.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, Tim Sackett, right? That's the whole point. So speaking of rainy stuff, automatically in Seattle, automatically makes me think of music. And Tim Sackett, I got a text from you that said you're kind of in the mode of going to comfort music during the whatever we're in, the middle or the late stages of this great COVID lockout. What's your comfort music? Tell me more about the comfort music.
I saw an article where people are like they're turning to comfort music, and like it was actually like about sales, because like a lot of people have launched like new albums right now and they're not selling very well, but like then like they took a look at like all the like buys and downloads and Spotify's you know music listening, and it all starts to go back to like your comfort music of when you were like, I guess, happiest in your life, like a teenager or whatever, college. And you're listening to that kind of nostalgia. Same like with food and stuff right now. And so literally my top 3 Spotify playlists are songs to sing in the car, songs to sing in the shower, and also yacht rock. And yacht rock really is like more of like, that's super young for me. Like that's like more like my parents probably. But like when you were a little kid and you got to have your parents listen to like Chris Christopherson and all this crap. Like I love that kind of stuff. And then
is Kenny Loggins? Is that like
yacht rock?
Yeah,
for sure.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the whole, Kenny Loggins for sure.
Like
that's a good throw. Well done.
But Tim, was that Loggins? It sounded like you went Michael McDonald. You went Michael McDonald, didn't you?
That was Michael McDonald, yeah.
Oh my goodness. There's so much opportunity there. Okay. Jlee, what about you? Like, what's your listening pleasure right now? How's it changed?
Well, it's gotten like my television viewing habits. We're going into a different territory right now. I just re-downloaded Apple Music Essentials of Nick Jonas, and I'm really feeling Nick Jonas because I was also watching The Voice, and I'm in love. It's real good.
Very good. Very
Don't
good.
make me sing it.
KD is a closet Jonas Brothers lover, by the way.
He loves Nick.
You know, I would never admit that though, right? Because let's face it, I'm just too macho. There's too much macho like coming out. So, Jlee, I've been real quick, and then we'll get to the topics at hand. I've been in the car, like the longest car ride I ever took with Tim Sackett. We were on a road trip in Chicago, and we road tripped into Wisconsin to see his son play college baseball. The day after we saw Hamilton, I think it was the day after we saw Hamilton.
I think it was the day before, because I didn't get you ready for the musical.
No, because I clearly remember being in the side, like, the passenger seat. I had heard it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I wanted to participate, right?
The King. You wanted to hear the King song over and over.
Yeah, and I wanted to know the words, and like you're like yelling them out like like a semi-drunk teenager. Although I don't think that's probably appropriate or applicable to Hamilton. Yeah. But and I couldn't do it, and I wanted to. So I learned all those songs. Yeah, so I've heard you on the sing along. So it's awesome. It's awesome. And the yacht rock is awesome as well. Okay, let's get to the rundown. Yeah, go.
Katie, you didn't tell us what do you listen to?
Yeah, what do you listen to?
I don't know that mine has changed. Like, it's full of Jlee said, it feels like Seattle. So I got like a lot of like grungy stuff, like Pearl Jam, et cetera, et cetera. I've got a lot of like not punk rock, but pop punk rock that I've always listened to, right? Like Blink 182 and stuff like that. I really haven't like said what's next, or I haven't gone to any form of comfort. I just play that. I think I'm also different, Jlee, in that I've continued to listen to the same podcasts. But I think that's probably because since I was already working from home a good bit, like my habits are the same. So when I go for a run, like I'll knock out like almost an hour of a podcast. So my podcast, like listening, is probably the same. Whereas we kind of know just by like, our conversations together that everybody's kind of down because their habits have changed. Right, Jlee?
Yeah, I mean, no commute means no podcast. But by the way, on Nirvana, I don't know if you saw it, but Post Malone did a fundraiser concert from his home and just covered nothing but Nirvana sets. And I have to say, it was fantastic.
I'll have to check that out.
So good. Yeah.
Got it.
Post Malone, all those tattoos on that face. Little creepy, huh?
A little too many.
Absolutely. Wasn't it, by the way, did I read this right? I think Mark Wahlberg gave Post Malone advice that he's going to want the tattoos to come off eventually. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
Does he speak from his ab experience? Like what I don't know.
Yeah, what do you have? Funky Bunch? Right? Do you have Funky Bunch
Mark,
down there?
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
Yeah, something like that, right? So
Thug Life.
That was something that I saw over the last week. All right, let's get to the rundown. Jlee, I'm coming to you with this first one. So Airbnb. I think we've all used Airbnb. So
not me.
You have not. Okay, that's good. Fair point.
Marriott.
based on your line. Marriott, saying it correctly. So Airbnb has postponed new grad hires until August 2021. But get this, Jlee. So not 2020. They postponed new grad hires till August 2021, which tells you a lot about what they're going through. But they're giving them 10% of their offered salary right now, even if they turn down the job, which, they could take the money and they could turn it down in late 2020 or 2021, I think. So this was reported, at least I picked it up, Business Insider. And in that Business Insider article, they stated that Glassdoor has Airbnb's average new grad base salary coming in at about $133K, meaning the average 10% stipend could be about $13,000. So this whole deal about delaying new hires, whether they're new grad hires or otherwise, a lot of companies going through it, Jlee. What do you see with this with Airbnb? Is it a stunt? Is it a publicity stunt? Is it a goodwill offering, or something in between, or something I haven't described yet?
I can't make my mind up on this one. So first of all, if it's $130,000 a year as starting pay for a fresh grad, most of their fresh grads are probably in the technology space, right?
Sure.
Like
computer science,
developers, computer science. Yeah. So that's the population we're talking about. Airbnb is not a huge company, so the number of people that they are doing this for, not necessarily huge. So is this like a massive investment? I don't know. But I don't know. I lean towards this is an investment that they've made, not in people, not in talent. I think that it is probably in the realm of PR, maybe something that they think will boost their employer brand at the end of the day when we come out of this. I don't know. I can't help but be a little bit cynical about it.
It's a little bit of an internal HR comms nightmare, right? Because you have, at the same time, they're laying off 25% of their workforce, which are probably non-technical folks, right?
Yeah.
And they know they're going to have some churn. They know they're going to have some needs for tech. And so you still, I mean, this is the reality of business is like, hey, we're going to have some fat we got to cut off. I don't need 14 social media marketing reps when we don't have any money, but I am going to need computer science and engineers. And so we got to continue that pipeline. And sometimes that's a hard message to deliver to the workforce to say, hey, a quarter of you are going away. Thank you so much. We love you. Keep staying at Airbnb. By the way, we're spending $250, and I don't know if that's the number, but we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on these bonuses to people that might never come to work for us, and they're not going to be repaid. It's like
probably are never going to. I mean, what percentage do you think are going to actually come back and say, you were so good to me and gave me that 10%. I am loyal to you for life.
I bet it has a bigger impact than you think.
Really?
Yeah, I would say 70. I will say 75%.
Well, I'll weigh in here and I'll say, here's what I have. I have a little bit of fatigue. So I do think I agree with Jlee that it's an employer brand play. Tim, I agree with you too. I think it's probably a smart investment if it's like in really mission critical skill sets. I think I'm blown away by the 2021 date rather than sometime later this year. I mean, that's a year and a half away.
I know.
And I think that should really, I think it's gimmicky. Like I can't say it. Like, I'm familiar with people that pushed out like new hires. We did not have to do it at Kinetics. We're a small business. We didn't have any outstanding offers, so we didn't have to do it. But I don't know, man. Like I smell kind of a publicity stunt. And I just here's what I have fatigue about, Tim. I'll go to you first. I have fatigue about companies that are publicized for doing the quote unquote right thing during this time period when they have resources to do it. So Airbnb right now, I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, and a listener can correct me, I don't think they're profitable at this point. I think they just got a round of capital in as this whole thing with COVID was going down. And basically they're spending some of that money and it's kind of stunnish. Like, I get fatigue, Tim, about all the articles that, we have this peanut gallery and it's good, but it's also like fatiguing of people that clap for we're doing no layoffs. Or like we're doing this or we're doing that. And, it kind of like puts the tag on people that you're doing the right thing. But these are such unusual circumstances that I think it's really unfair, like to do these kind of stunts and just to take credit for it. I mean, it's August 2021.
Crazy.
Yeah, I would think that it could. I don't know if they publicly came out and said they were doing this. I think it could have happened during like people that were getting laid off sometimes leak this stuff, right? I didn't see like an official like, hey, Airbnb is doing, it also could speak to how desperate they were pre-COVID to actually get engineering talent. And so somebody on their executive team has enough influence to say, hey, we have to do this because, we're getting crushed before and we want to make sure that we're in a good position after. I don't know. Like the executive in me says, why the hell wouldn't you just wait? Because more than likely there's going to be some folks around, that we really have to do this. But I mean, I don't know. It could be, very forward thinking and, good for them.
Joke's on us later. I guess we see.
Yeah.
So it's 18 months of forward thinking, I guess, which is, that's just amazing to me. Jlee, any closing thoughts on this?
Could be.
I want that crystal. Give me that crystal ball. I want to know what's happening 18 months out.
Hey, by the way, so the last Airbnb I stayed at was one,
Yeah.
keep talking about trips with Tim. This is crazy, right? So Tim did an Airbnb like down in, help me out, Tim, Orlando, right? So Tim does this Airbnb in Orlando.
Yeah.
He sends me the pictures. Like, it's amazing, right? And this is kind of the tricky part about Airbnb. So it's amazing in the pictures. I'm like, holy cow. Like, I may get a spa here, like whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I get there and there's a full-on construction site going on. There's like, like used gloves.
150 yards away from a Walmart supercenter.
Correct. I mean, it's just amazing. And then I get in the property. It's just amazing what photography can do, because I get in the property. And Tim, I think it's fair to say that it's all like grade D finishings, correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah. How fast can we put this thing up and let it burn down? Yeah.
And it was a straight Airbnb like investment, right? They built it with Airbnb in mind in the Orlando area, like for families, et cetera, et cetera. Amazing.
Yeah. Not awful, but not like the pictures.
Well, if you guys want more of an assurance for, a place to stay,
tell us more.
There's this thing called Marriott Homes and Villas, and I have to tell you, the villas are something, a sight to be seen.
I can't wait to check one of those out.
I can't either. Like I'm like going to the web right now.
I think there's probably there's probably some listeners going, does Marriott sponsor this podcast?
There's no friends and family discount, but nonetheless.
Well, Godspeed to you, Airbnb, with your 18-month pending offers. Come on. All right, we're changing topics. Tim Sackett, I'm queuing you up. So Tim did a post. Tim's got this thing on the Tim Sackett project, which is timsackett.com. And he does this thing called the Corona Diaries. Tim, I think it's fair to say you're 5 or 6 deep. It's a 5-minute video once a week, Corona Diaries. Is that correct, Tim?
Yep, it is.
And one of the things he covered, I think this week, Tim, and he had this cool little stocking cap on because it was really cold in Michigan. I sent, Jlee, I put a thing out on Instagram and I said, Tim Sackett in a hipster hat is the best Tim Sackett, which I stand behind. If you haven't seen the video, go see it.
It's the hipster hat and the glasses, like all combined. Then
I do love the glasses. Yes.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So in Corona Diaries, episode 6, Tim?
Yeah. I don't know.
Episode 6, Tim digs
episode
into
48
internships. And basically, Tim, what you asked, I want you to tell the story a little bit because you've got one going into this right now, maybe 2, depending on how you define it. But, you asked the question, how many internships have been canceled for the summer of 2020? 1 million, 2 million. Let's just say that all of them have, which obviously leaves undergrads and 2020 graduates in a very hard predicament. So one of the things you talked about on that is the wisdom of the unpaid internship. Now, what's really interesting about that, and then I'm going to throw it to you, Tim, is we have legal stuff, but probably more to the fact, we have a lot of shaming that would go on like in the community if you were really pro unpaid internship. I've got my own views on this, but do you want to describe kind of like your viewpoint, what you're going through with one of your sons as he kind of enters in a tough economy?
Yeah. So, a couple of things. One is, for the most part, everybody I've talked to pretty much has had their summer internship program just shelved. Either, hey, we're not, because we're working remote, we might have the money, but we're working remote, so it doesn't make sense because it won't be the same experience. Or we totally just cut our budgets because of everything going on. At the same time, this is a little bit newer that a lot of new grads and undergrad that first summer after they graduate will actually do an internship. And then a lot of times that internship turns into a real job. Like for me, it was always like, hey, once you graduate, you try to get a real job, but people are still doing like interns at that. So my one son's graduating, he actually graduated this week from University of Michigan. And like literally everything just gets shut down. So I'm like, hey, you have to get experience somehow. Now, like during the recession from '08 to about 2010, this same thing kind of popped up.
Correct.
And there was this instant kind of like shaming that happened as we started to come out of the recession. Now, in the recession, no one said a thing because no one had money. So it's like, hey, sure, if I can give you an experience, let's do this. And it was a feel good kind of thing. But eventually people kept doing it. And now we're in like 2012, 2013. And all of a sudden there was like this shaming that went on to say, how could you ever have an intern and not pay them? And you're like, well, I don't have any money, but these people are wanting to come and get experience because we have a great brand, but we have no money. And like this, so like there was a lot of passion behind this, to the point where there's a lot of kids that wanted to have an intern with a certain brand, but they couldn't because the shaming got so bad that nobody would risk having that go public for their brand.
Right.
And all of a sudden now we're in the exact same situation. And I bring it up because I'm waiting for all those shamers to come back. And guess what? None of them are. Because guess what happens to shaming when you have no money? It's like everyone's in the same boat and they go, oh, maybe we shouldn't have been so hard because we were flush with cash and now we don't. So I truly believe, and we don't have to call them internships. We have to call them whatever. But we, as employers, as leaders, we have to give these kids experiences, whether we can afford to pay them or not. And so what do I call that? A project, an experience, a mentor, or whatever. We need to find a way to get the kid to have an experience that they can put on their resume that said, hey, I did this, call this person. They're going to tell you what a great worker I am. And right, so far, there's just everything is just frozen with indecision, and all these kids are going to miss out on this summer because no one's willing to do anything, and I think it's shameful.
So Jlee, what I hear there, it's kind of interesting because, like Tim said, there was a trail. I think there's a trail factor here, right? So if you go back to the Great Recession, 08, 09, what Tim described is the practice that became acceptable continued. Let's say it continued through 012, 13. I would tell you it went as late as 14, Tim.
For sure, yeah.
But there's always a trail factor. And now what we're going to see is the bottom has fallen out of the economy and the opportunity for kids to pick up experience that's meaningful. But now there's another trail factor.
Hi, I'm Stephen Rothberg.
And I'm Jeanette Leeds.
And together, we're the co-hosts of the High Volume Hiring Podcast.
Are you involved in hiring dozens or even hundreds of employees a year? If so, you know that the typical sourcing tools, tactics, and strategies, they just don't scale.
Yeah. Our bi-weekly podcast features news, tips, case studies, and interviews with the world's leading experts about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to high volume hiring.
Make sure to subscribe today.
Meaning that we'll lose this entire round of internship because we can't pivot that hard against what's been established, right, Jlee?
Well, so the one thing that you raise that's interesting is the idea of, is it called an internship? Is it something else? Like, I don't disagree that it is ultimately to, the broader benefit to get these kids experience, help prepare them so that when they do enter the working world, it's grounded in something, because Lord knows that that makes a big difference. But I guess the thing that I struggle with is, like, if we revisit this path of unpaid something, projects, internships, or whatever, like, who can afford to actually take those on? What does that mean for others who cannot afford to work through an unpaid internship? And so one of the things that makes me think about is, like, do we need to get to a place of thinking about skills, experience, qualifications, capabilities differently, because you're going to have this gigantic population of people, not just fresh grads, but like others also who just have been unemployed. So look at them all differently and think about, capabilities as opposed to actual experiences, because there's going to be a whole lot of people who are trying to get into the workforce, let's say 18 months from now, just like those grads who are going to go back to Airbnb in 18 months.
Yeah, I think it opens up. I do think it opens up a little bit of a Pandora's box, because we also have a number of professions that automatically have experiences, internships, practicums built into the degree program, right? If you're a teacher, you have student teaching. If you're a physical therapist or a doctor, you have these, practicums that you go through as you're going through school, and you're also working in a hospital and stuff like that. Nursing, the same way. And yet, so for like a finance or for a marketing or for like all these other ones, we don't, engineering. So why don't we kind of force that, process to happen? I don't know, Katie, here, can we be honest? The only reason we started paying internships the way we do right now was it was a talent attraction thing because there wasn't enough talent. And so it started with the Google and they do the stupid movies about it and like in Facebook and like everybody started paying more and more. It got to the point where interns were making so much money. And the reality is they're not worth it. Those interns give zero value. Like they don't come in and like, oh my God, this intern transformed our entire company. Shut up. No, they didn't. Like they literally give you nothing. They're a cost center and you're babysitting them for the summer. And this is the vast majority, right? Now there's some interns that like, oh, we have this great program and they look at stuff and they, create something. Like, shut up. No, they don't. For the most part, they don't. We pay them all this money it's totally about recruiting and talent attraction. And now we're going to go back into an environment where I don't have to spend all this money to attract talent. And guess what? All that money is going to flow out of those budgets. And then the kids are going to be sitting there going, wait a minute, I need experience. I want to build my resume. How do I do that? And I just think it's a shame that we have this pressure on us to say, oh no, you have to pay everybody fair work, fair wage. Shut your mouth. It's not fair work or fair wage because they don't do anything. They're an intern.
Yeah. So here's my recommendation. And
you like that, Jlee? You like that?
If people are being very honest with themselves, the impact of interns, I think. Oof.
So, hey, here's a proposal for you. React to this and then we'll move on. We'll hit our last topic really quickly and we'll get out of here. I believe that the laws ought to be modified a little bit. First of all, I don't think companies should be able to advertise unpaid internships. So let's comply with the law that way. Let's make sure that companies aren't doing whatever they're going to do based on the backs of unpaid labor. But I do believe in a free market economy that anybody that wants, especially of a certain age with a lack of experience, that wants to, especially in a recessionary period, gain some experience, ought to be able to tag themselves as available for, you could call it an internship, but just for experience that is unpaid. And I think that's a fair way to let people identify themselves. But I don't think you can. I think the tricky part is always, does the company advertise an internship that's unpaid? I'm not sure that companies should control that. I think probably the individual should control over whether they're willing to work that way. And I know there's like 20 different problems with that, Jlee and Tim, but I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I just want to say, Katie, I've had interns the last 5 summers. I have interns this summer, and I am paying them for this summer internship experience as well. So for all those people that, think like I'm just against internships and paying interns, that's not true. I value the experience that they can get as an employer trying to give back to the community. But to think they're going to come in and they're going to be worth the money I give them, that's a stretch.
Man, what's going to happen to your Glassdoor ratings after people listen to this podcast? Oof.
Yeah, like I care about Glassdoor.
All right, so I like the rant, like Tim Sackett. love it. I think you're right, by the way. But I do have. There's just that trail factor, right? We trailed out of the last recession and took advantage of it, and now we're going to kill an entire class that's going to get zero experience for a summer because we can't pivot enough. There's always that trail factor.
Yeah.
And that is unfortunate. Well, let's talk about some positive news. Let's talk about something positive. And that's the rebirth of an American factory in Toledo, Ohio. Okay, so what we're doing with this, we'll spend like 5 minutes on this and then we'll get out of here. So I challenged Jlee and Tim to watch it's not a docu-series. It's like a single 2-hour set called American Factory on Netflix. So the real quick drop on this is American Factory is a 2-hour bit directed by Stephen Bognar and Julie Reichert about a Chinese company that took over a GM plant. Yep. It's a glass company in the automotive industry. So Chinese company like took it over, and they basically allowed for 2 years Tim and Jlee film crews to run around and film everything. It started off real positive as they kind of relaunched this plant in Toledo, and they brought over like 150, 200 Chinese workers, some of them supervisors, some of them just workers, to kind of jumpstart what the company way was around automotive glass. And as it turns out, they had trouble getting it off the ground. They had trouble with the workforce in Toledo. And what was fascinating to me, and Jlee, I'm going to go to you first. What was fascinating to me is the film crews went to the sister facilities in China. And the contrast, if you watch American Factory on Netflix, the contrast between what's going on in a Chinese factory and what's going on in an American factory, at least one that's trying to bootstrap up and just get started, was really, really interesting to watch. Jlee, what was your initial impression of American Factory on Netflix?
So thank you for making us watch it. I actually thought it was a good watch, so thank you. So I have to admit, I went in biased on a few fronts. One, because my husband kept pushing to say, like, it's really interesting, and you should see, especially the pieces about the organizing activities and unions and blah, blah, blah. And I was just not interested. And then the other thing was, I was fearful that the way that they would portray culture, like the Chinese culture in that factory and in Toledo, that it would come from a place of I'm not sure what the right word is, but they would, I don't know, there'd be like some mockery involved in it because it's just so different. And I guess I was pleasantly surprised by a few things. So one, I had to give like a lot of credit to the organizers, because I can really see, like, if I am in the shoes of, someone who works in that factory, and just the amount of passion and how compelling they are in terms of like why they should unionize. Not saying that they were right or that they had all the right facts, but I just think the level of passion that someone brings to a situation like that, and the ability to influence, I don't know, it's just not to be discounted. And I think it's an interesting like look at what that process looks like. And then the other thing was,
to be clear to the listener, this is the American factory attempting to organize and unionize, probably about a year in, I would guess, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, it's about that. And, you see all sides of the story, but I don't know, how often as like HR professionals or folks in the business community do you get to see like that side of it, like how people are, using their, personal, platform skills to be able to try to influence their colleagues and others to move in a particular direction. So I thought that was compelling and interesting. And then I actually felt like they did some justice as far as trying to show like the culture clash, but in not a negative way, like in a positive way. Like, here is a completely different, culture that the Chinese factory owners were bringing to Toledo and exposing people to. And I thought they did it justice. It was really good.
Jlee, before I flip it to Tim, I've got one quick follow-up, Tim. Jlee, you mentioned you were, you approached this cautiously related to how the Chinese culture, either in China or in Toledo, would be depicted. What was your take on that? Because I have a really distinct hot take on that.
So like there were some moments where I recall, like they were more celebratory moments in the documentary where they had Chinese singers. I think they had Chinese dancers. They were in a ballroom that was full of, red cloth and all the symbols of good luck and prosperity. And I thought that there would be moments where people... And like, it's not like they were like fully accepting of it, but I thought there would be moments where they would be showing, let's say, those from Toledo kind of mocking it or poking fun at it or being like really, bothered or, by it. And I actually thought that they seemed receptive and like this balance of trying to accept a different culture that's providing a livelihood for them, that's bringing, something to their economy. I was pleasantly surprised by that.
Tim, you're in Detroit, 30 Ford, GM, all the car companies. You're in Motor City. What was your take after watching American Factory?
We could spend 4 hours talking about the whole union dynamics. I don't want to really go down there because, I mean, what happened was those workers were working at a GM plant making $29 and change per hour. And the
Right.
Chinese company comes in and now they're making like $12 and change or $15 and change or something, right?
Right.
It was half.
Right.
Yes. And the reality is the whole reason the GM plant went out of business is because they couldn't stay competitive. So it's like,
Right.
okay, let's just put that aside. Okay. There's a couple of things that stand out. I have one quote, so the chairman, they called him the chairman, who was the billionaire Chinese owner who would come in, walk around, he would go and like walk the factory with his Chinese leaders and they would talk in Chinese and then we would get to see the dubbing. And one of the supervisors, they kept saying like, we can't get them to do this because these Americans have fat fingers, which I loved.
Right.
That was great.
Americans. Yes.
And then when they went over to, like Jlee was saying, like the Americans went over to see the Chinese factory and they had this celebration that almost was university-like in terms of like their camaraderie and cheering on the company and everybody's all in. And it's unlike anything you would ever see in an American. Even think about the best culture, the most kind of fraternal culture of an American company, multiply that by 14 million. And now you have what a Chinese company is like their entire life is into this company. They're themselves as their job, their family, their livelihood, everything is about protecting the company, making the company better. By the way, they also have unions, but the union steward or the leader of the union was the brother of the chairman, who also was the secretary of the Communist Party in the provincial.
That's the thing. That's
one other
that's
thing,
the
Katie,
thing,
is
right. Yeah, go.
That is, yeah. So the other piece of it is they're trying to put this Chinese culture in an American factory. When the Americans go over, they talk to the Chinese and they're like, yeah, we work 12 hours a day. We get 1 or 2 days off per month. That's the only way that's going to work in America is if Chinese comes in and takes over America and makes us do it. Like it's never going to happen.
Red Dawn style, Red Dawn.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I had a couple of reactions and both of you be thinking about your favorite scene from American Factory. I want to end on that. But, one of my reactions, Jlee, my ears perked up when you said you were concerned about how like Chinese culture might be depicted. That's my paraphrase of what you said. I would tell you when I heard you say that, like without question, I thought the Chinese culture, at least from a workplace standpoint, came across as fully dominant in this 2 hours. I mean, unbelievably dominant. I think to your point, I never saw any of the American workers, treating the Chinese poorly. I think they were pensive about it because it was the best job they could get and they were just trying to hang on. I thought the Chinese like supervisors and managers, for the most part, the guy who took over late was not, because he basically told all the Chinese folks, hey, we're better than they are, which might be my favorite scene, by the way, where he just flat out tells them in a meeting, hey, we're better than the Americans. Like, just know that. But Jlee, to your earlier like question or concern, man, I just thought, it really like makes you stop and think about our competitiveness, like in the manufacturing realm. And then Tim, to your point, the other reaction I had is, they had something they called a union. They also like went around and interviewed workers like on these teams in the Chinese plant. And they'd say things like, yes, I have like a daughter and a son at home and I see them once, maybe twice a year. Yeah. So it's like a position of complete dominance. But I think we all agree it's worthy of 2 hours, especially.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, it's great.
Like in the lockdown. Any favorite scenes? Like just to kind of depict one scene for our listeners, and then we'll get out of here.
So mine was, they were talking, there's a lot of union talk. And at one point, the Chinese people kind of come in and are talking to the chairman and they're like, hey, this union thing. And he just kind of goes, yeah, if we have a union, I'm going to close it. And you just knew that was going to happen. Now, in America, we would never have that happen because, it would hit the local papers and like they would get shamed into keeping it open, even if they're losing hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever. And this guy's like, I'll close it. I'll be on a plane in 12 hours. I'll be home. And it will never hit the media in China. And I could care less because I'm not losing money to you morons with fat fingers,
So that was actually my favorite scene too, but also for the reason of he was so straightforward about it, but he said it and his interpreter had to interpret it. And you had like this timid, soft-spoken woman who then repeats it in English and like you wait for them to respond. Yeah. And I just feel like the buildup of it was so amazing. That interpreter, I mean, poor thing, but
oh my
it was
God,
amazing.
To try to turn, this guy was so straightforward and then she would be like, and we would really have to look at the situation if we would keep this, like she tried to like soften it and he's just like, I close it tomorrow.
Yeah. It's so good.
If they vote union yes, we're closed. Like, okay.
So I think my favorite scene was, Jlee mentioned and Tim too, all the pageant style stuff, right? At the celebration of the Chinese factory. And my favorite scene is after they did what? They did probably 10 minutes of that. And it's like dramatic, like Tim said, it's university style. And then they cut back to Toledo, to the break room off the floor in Toledo. And it was a really effective cut because it went from 100 on the energy level to like a 3 on the energy level. Yeah. And it wasn't funny as much as it was, oh, wow, man. Yeah. I don't know. Go ahead, Jlee.
Well, just the other thing, this is not like a favorite scene, but like one of the aspects for me, and so I will compliment my husband also on the recommendation, is that, especially for someone like me who sits in a corporate glass tower, to see like the day-to-day life of a blue collar environment, what is happening in that setting, like everyone in their uniforms. There was one scene in particular where I think the woman like got an injury to her thumb and she was really nervous around like, am I going to get paid? Like what's going to happen? And you could see the, concern on her face of like, this is my livelihood. I just injured my thumb on the job. Like what's going to happen? Like you saw the big bandage around her finger. I just thought it was all very humanizing. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. So American Factory on Netflix. That's a little bit of a review for you. It's worth 2 hours, especially if you work anywhere in the talent sphere. So check that out. All right, so that's it. The HR Famous Podcast. I'm Kris Dunn. She's Jessica Lee. He's Tim Sackett. Airbnb, unpaid internships, American Factory. Until next time, we are out.